Okay, so welcome to part 2 of the Advisory Board Committee training through the Morris County Continuum of Care. My name is Allison Del Calzo-Barons. I am the chair of the Continuum of Care Executive Committee. I am the program manager for the Sexual Health Center of Morristown Medical Center. Today, we're going to start with a little introduction. We're going to talk about communication. We're going to talk about listening, conflict resolution, and then we'll end with a summary of what we did today. The goal of this series of training is to provide education and support to the Advisory Board Committee. The purpose of the trainings is to help ABC members learn best practices for participation in committee work. Today's topics include the basics of communication, especially in group work, listening skills, and conflict management. So, hang on, I'm gonna stop and reshare real quick. Sorry. I just want to make sure that I'm optimizing for sound. Okay, here we go. Please, if you cannot hear this, take yourself off mute and just say, I can't hear that, but hopefully this should work. So we're gonna start with a funny video. So I think everything in training, especially when we're talking about communication, should just be funny. It should be funny. So hopefully you enjoy this as much as I did.
First, there was PlayStation, aka PS1. Then there's PS2, PS3, and now PS4. And that makes sense. You'd think after Xbox, there'd be Xbox 2. But no. Next came Xbox 360. And now, after 360, comes Xbox One. Why one? Maybe that's how many seconds of thought they put into naming it.
Can you get the butter, please?
Yeah. However, with the Xbox One, I can control my entire entertainment system using voice commands. Up until now, I've had to use Leonard.
Geez, sorry.
Then get the other one. Pass the butter.
Hang on. I don't feel like you're taking this dilemma seriously.
Fine, Sheldon. You have my undivided attention.
Okay, now, the PS4 is more angular and sleek looking.
No way!
It's true. But the larger size of the Xbox One may keep it from overheating.
You wouldn't want your gaming system to overheat?
No, see, well, you absolutely would not. And furthermore, the Xbox One now comes with a Kinect included.
Included?
Yes. Not sold separately. Although the PS4 uses cool new GDDR5 RAM, while the Xbox One is still using the conventional DDR3 memory.
Why would they still be using DDR3? Are they nuts?
See, that's what I thought. But then they go and throw in an ES RAM buffer.
Oh, wait a second. Who's they?
Xbox.
You're kidding!
No, I am not. And this ES RAM buffer should totally bridge the 100 gigabit per second bandwidth gap between the two RAM types.
This is a nightmare. How will you ever make a decision?
See, I don't know. What should I do?
Please pass the butter!
Okay. So everybody can still see my screen, right? Should be the main presentation slide. Okay. So good. Okay. So what is communication, right? And we'll talk about this video in a moment. And the reason I chose this is because there's some good things in here and some not great things, right? But what is communication at the end of the day? It's an exchange of information. Communication should be two-way. And what we saw in this video is that communication was really one way. Sheldon, the male character in the scene, is telling a story and is only able to process responses and information that is relevant to his story, to what he wants to talk about. What we see Amy, the female character in the video doing is trying to express a need, and her need is not being met. So she does what she needs to do to get her need met, but it's clear to us as the viewer that she doesn't actually care about what the other character is talking about. And so in here in communication, we need to have a giver and a receiver. And in this case, we had neither, right? Let me move forward. There we go. So in order to understand communication and how to communicate appropriately, we need to start with what are the basic needs in a relationship. And this list of basic needs may seem at first to be contradictory in some ways, but let's talk about each one on its own. So certainty. So when we say that people in relationships need certainty, it means that they need to know where they stand. They need to know what their role is in a relationship. They need to know what they mean to the other person. A relationship also needs variety, right? If we were doing the same things, talking about the same things over and over again, we sure would not feel like we were being productive, like the relationship would not be a productive relationship. We'd feel like we were always talking about the same things all the time. Each person in a relationship needs to feel important. Everybody needs to feel connection, like they are really being heard and seen, and that they hear and see the people around them. In a relationship, we need growth. We need to feel, again, like we're not stagnating, that we're not going backwards, that we're moving together forward. We're moving forward together. And everybody in a relationship needs to feel like they're contributing, that it's not only the other person that's contributing, that they are also contributing. Again, that you're growing together. If one person is feeling like they're not moving forward, the relationship is not going to thrive. So how does this relate to communication and effective communication? In order to have effective communication, you need to make sure all of those needs are being met. And we do that through effective communication. So the first step in effective communication is clarity. Understanding your own message is the first step to clarity, right? Second. Just move some things around. So in order to communicate with clarity, we need to have short and direct messages. We need to make sure that they're relevant, right? So like, even when you're thinking, I'm going to say something right now, right? Have you stopped to make sure that you understand your message and that it's relevant to the conversation? The second step is to prepare to deliver the message, right? And so that could look differently during different communication, right, methods. So for instance, email communication. Preparing your message might look like writing it out, going back and editing, wordsmithing, right? If you are going to be communicating with your voice, you will want to make sure that you could even write down notes. This is what I want to say, that you've got it, ready to be packaged so that people can hear it. Step 3 is when you deliver the message, keep it short and simple, keep it clear. Step 4 is to be cooperative and friendly, right? So when you're communicating, you might, and we're going to talk about nonverbal communication too in a little while, but you might smile, you might make eye contact, you might invite people to weigh in on what you've said. Step 5 is to ask for understanding. A lot of times people say, did that make sense? And while that statement can be viewed as somebody having low confidence in what they're saying. It also can be a way of asking that the other person has understood what they're trying to say. The next step is to listen. We're going to talk about listening in a minute too. Once we've asked for understanding, it's now our opportunity to make sure that we have been understood. We're going to then, after we've listened, consider and reflect the other person's viewpoint. And then we're going to go all the way back to the beginning. What is it that I want to say now? Let me make sure I'm checking for understanding of my own message back to this person. So the next slide is a video. The visual on the stop, like the stop point of the slide, is an unfortunate image. And I just want to prepare you. It is a image of a woman with duct tape over her mouth. I don't love that image. I think it could be triggering. So I just want to let you know that that's the image that's going to come up. That is not the video. This image is not in the video. It happens to be the end point of the image. So I just wanted to let you know before I move forward in the slides that is a bit of a trigger warning. I don't love it. So I apologize. But I am going to play this video as quickly as possible to get that image off.
UCLA in California did a study years ago that is still recognized as an important study today. And that is the 7-38-55% study. Because what UCLA and their professor claimed when they did this study is that only 7% of the reason that you believe in what I'm saying is based on the content, that means the word themselves. 38% of the reason that you believe what I'm saying is actually based on my tone of voice, and 55% of the reason that you believe in what I'm saying is my nonverbal communication, so that means my body language. How I'm using my arms, how I'm moving back and forward, if I have an eye contact, how I move my head, how straight and stand up my body might be, and so on and so forth. Think about that for a second, because if I started off my presentation somewhat like this, over here in the corner, just standing here with a very low voice, talking down to the floor, and perhaps even kicking nervously and insecure down to the floor while I'm saying something like this. I'm very happy and I'm very excited to be here today. It's going to be a fascinating, interesting presentation, and I have been looking forward spending time with all of you guys for the last couple of weeks. Could you imagine I continue my presentation like that? I'm pretty sure that a lot of you would be sitting there thinking, my God, this is going to be a very long presentation. Because what is it that happened here? We had a lot of what I call incongruent behavior. Because I didn't have any eye contact. I was actually yawning when I'm saying I'm looking forward to spending time with you. I was basically standing over here being nervous, kicking down with my shoe into the floor, and there was nothing that was congruent from my content compared to the way I was presenting my content. So that means you were really not listening a lot to my words, because in my words I was just saying I'm looking forward to it, I'm excited, it's going to be funny and thrilling. You were basically reading my tone of voice that was kind of low with no variation and lack of pauses, and you were obviously reading my use of body language as well. To do another comparison, when you listen to a new song on the radio, what is it you remember the first? Is it the melody or is it the lyrics? It's the melody. And it's the same thing when you're listening to other people. First you start matching the body language, then you look at the tone of voice, and then finally you compare all of that to the use of words.
Okay, so let's break that down because there's actually some controversy around the 7-38-55 rule and exactly what Mehrabian was saying when he published his results. So essentially 7-38-55 rule is a sort of like a breakdown, a philosophy of communication based on a study that Albert Mehrabian did. And essentially what we just heard in the video was that if the words that are spoken, the tone of voice that's used when speaking those words, and the nonverbal communication or the body language and facial expressions do not match, what people will trust, what the listener will trust, is the predominant form of communication, which is body language and tone over the words. So if you are saying something, whether or not somebody trusts you is based on whether or not those other things match, that your tone of voice and your body language match the words that you're using. This does not mean that your words are unimportant. You still want to make sure you're choosing your words well. But you also want to make sure that your tone and your body language match your words. So how can we do that? The most key thing that I can tell you, that the two most important things are maintaining eye contact and smiling, or using a calm, neutral, relaxed face. Those two things are probably the biggest indicators to people of whether or not they can trust somebody. Keep your gestures small and non-threatening, right? Have you ever seen the politicians? They mostly do this. They were taught that, right? They were taught not to make big, wide gestures with their hands. They were taught not to have threatening looking gestures, right? They were taught to kind of like keep their hands in this sort of torso area, and it's important to move, right? If you don't move, people will just think you're a stiff robot, right? So it's important to move. But if your gestures are too big, number one, they distract people from your actual message, but also they can be seen as threatening. Try not to fidget. People notice if you are fidgeting. Again, it's distracting. Position your body towards the person you're talking to, by pointing away. Even if you're making eye contact, people will notice if your body is facing away from them. So you want to have like an open posture, facing the person you're speaking to, and you want to moderate your voice. Again, working on that tone. You don't want to sound monotonous. Obviously, you want some inflection to your voice, but you don't want to appear like you're yelling or being aggressive, using aggressive tone. And you don't want to appear unconfident either. You want to appear that you believe in what you're saying. Excuse me. No. My apologies. So speaking of body language, it was obvious that my daughter walked in here when she's not supposed to be. So let's talk about listening, because obviously how we speak and how we communicate to others is really important. But listening is maybe more important side of communication. Remember, we talked about there's communication is two-way. Communication is two-way. There are the receiver of the message, and there is the giver of the message. So we just talked about what it means to give a message. Now we're going to talk about what it means to listen to a message. So I have another fun video.
Mom, I have a problem. I need to talk.
Good. You can talk, and well, listen.
This football player wants to use an essay I wrote for his college application and pretend it's his own. I know it's dishonest, but I might be making too much of it. I wanted to get your advice.
You're hoping I can help you.
Yeah, I just said that. So, I don't think he should get into college under false pretenses. But are they really false pretenses if nobody thinks he's smart anyway? I don't want to be a part of his cheating, but I also don't want to take away a shot at going to college. I just don't know what to do.
You're uncertain what action to take.
Yes, Why are you talking like a robot?
You want to know why I'm talking like a robot?
I have a problem and I need your help. All you're doing is mindlessly parroting back what I say.
You say one thing, and I restate it.
Forget it. If you're not going to help me, you don't have to mock me.
We do not come from a family of criminals. You do not let him turn in that essay. God, I knew listening to our kids would be a mistake.
Okay. Okay, so what I love about this, so there's this phrase, active listening, and we're going to talk about active listening in a few minutes. But I think that one of the things that we get wrong about active listening is exactly what Lois did, right? So Lois is the mom. She's listening to her son, Malcolm, and he's looking for something from her. And she has been told that she should do active listening, which is when you listen non-judgmentally, right? And you acknowledge to the person and repeat back what they're saying. And that's not exactly, right? She didn't quite do it right. And so let's talk about what listening really means. So I like this. This is a good one. This is a good LISTEN, right? So like, what are we doing when we're listening? The first is to look interested, right? So again, we talked about when we're communicating to people, right? When we're the one who's giving the message, we should be turned towards people, making eye contact, having open posture. Guess what? All of that body language stuff still applies when you're the listener, right? When you're communicating as a listener, you are going to be looking the part. You also want to involve yourself. Listening doesn't mean just sitting like a statue and just letting the other person go on and on and on, right? It means that when there's an opportunity or when the person is looking for activity on your side, that you're responding and that you're responding appropriately. In that video, Malcolm is looking for more than for her to just repeat back basically what he's saying. He's looking for real understanding. Don't just repeat it back. Explain what you've understood. You can maybe respond by instead of repeating back verbatim, you could restate in your own words what you think you've heard, right? I'm hearing that you're saying X, Y, and Z. When you're listening, you're going to stay on target. So one of the things that people tend to have a tendency to do, and I actually am guilty of this, when you are responding, is to respond with like a story about yourself, right? So like your way of trying to empathize might be to say, oh, I know exactly what you mean. Last week, this thing happened to me too, right? And so really staying focused on what the person's telling you and staying focused on the person who's communicating to you is really important. Test your understanding. So again, here's where we're responding appropriately, right? So you may, again, restate what that person has told you in your own words to make sure that you understand what they said. Let me make sure I understand you, right? Evaluate the message, right? So again, sometimes, and I think we have a tendency to, some people are overly literal, right? They may hear what you're saying and interpret it very literally. Maybe that person used a word they didn't mean to use, right? Like, let's use our own senses, right, to really understand what they said. So you're going to evaluate the message. You're going to weigh the message. You're going to understand whether or not maybe you agree with the message or don't agree with the message. Or you're also going to wonder what the communicator wants from you, right? So the person who's speaking, what is it that this person wants from me, right? So sometimes it's that they just want you to hear them. Wow, oh my gosh, that's so hard. I'm so sorry you went through that, right? Maybe they want advice and you might want to ask them, did you want my advice here? Or did you want me to just be it a listening ear or a shoulder to cry on, right? And neutralize your feelings. And so one of the things that is really, really important to do in communication is to try not to take things personally. It's not about you, it's about the person who's speaking. And you should always be listening more than you speak. So let's talk about listening levels. So level 1 is pretending, right? So a pretend listener is somebody who kind of just does that L part, right? Looks like they're listening, but doesn't sort of do the rest. Selective listening is the next level. Selective listening is when maybe the person who's listening makes some early assumptions about what they're hearing and then filters all the rest of what you're saying based on that early assumption. The third level is active listening, right? And it's what we saw poor Lois attempt to do. And it's attentive listening, right? It's that everything we saw with that LISTEN in the last slide, that's really what an attentive or an active listener does. And then the last level is empathetic listening or reflective listening. Empathetic listening is it goes a step further. Empathetic listening is like active listening, but with the added benefit of really having non-judgmental understanding of what a person is going through. Asking questions that are related to not just the facts of what's happening, but also going that deeper level of like really understanding the feelings associated with what the person is telling you. There is a time and a place, by the way, for all these listening levels. I wouldn't recommend pretend listening a whole lot, but there's definitely places in your life that I think that I'm sure you can see like that pretend listening is a good strategy for getting through certain interactions, right? Same thing with selective listening, right? It depends on the situation. In group work, when you're having group discussion, level 4, empathetic listening, is going to be the most important listening that you can do. So I have a video for that. So this is a video. This is a piece from In and Out. So we're gonna just watch this. So in this scene, this purple elephant character has lost something that's very important to them. Has sort of disappeared. They're like kind of like a, what do they call it? Like a trash heap. And he's lost something important to him. And then this blue character, is Sadness. And there's another character in this scene who's Happiness. And so we're gonna see how Happiness and Sadness deal with empathetic listening.
No! No, you can't take my rocket to the top! Riley and I are going to the moon! Riley can't be done with me.
Hey, it's gonna be okay. We can fix this. We just need to get back to headquarters. Which way to the train station?
I had a whole trip planned for us.
Hey, who's ticklish, huh? Here comes the tickle monster. Hey, Bing Bong, look at this. Oh, here's a fun game. You point to the train station and we all go there. Won't that be fun? Come on, let's go to the train station.
I'm sorry they took your rocket. They took something that you loved. It's gone. Forever.
Sadness. Don't make him feel worse.
Sorry.
It's all I had left of Riley.
I bet you and Riley had great adventures.
Oh, they were wonderful. Once we flew back in time, we had breakfast twice that day.
Sadness.
It sounds amazing. I bet Riley liked it.
Oh, she did. We were best friends.
Yeah, it's sad.
I'm okay now. Come on. The train station is this way.
So in that video, I just like, I love that video. They had a goal, right? They need to get the train station, right? And the pink elephant character is knows the way, but is emotionally stopped, right? Cannot move forward. Right, happiness tries to distract, happiness, but happiness isn't really listening, right, to what he needs. The sadness character, right, kind of gets it. And sometimes we just need to acknowledge what that other person is saying, right? And let them feel the feelings. And so that's an example of empathetic listening. Okay. So we're going to move into the next module, which is conflict resolution. I have another video. We're video heavy today. Hope everybody's enjoying them. So this is a really good example of how to not, so like this should be how to not handle conflict. How do you not handle conflict? So let's watch this. It's cute. Okay. I like that one. There's no words, right? But we kind of get the idea. We're going to do a video in a couple of minutes that reviews conflict styles, and how people handle conflict. But what we can see already is that when two people are coming from different sides of a problem, and nobody's willing to back up, right? Nobody's willing to withdraw. There's only really one thing that can happen. And it's that nothing gets done. You cannot progress if nobody is willing to compromise, to bend, or to hop over, right? The reason that we talk about communication and conflict in the same training is really because they go hand in hand so well. So the main causes of conflict, there's lots of causes of conflict, right? But at the end of the day, we're going to start with the lack of communication. So if there's not enough communication between people, right? And certainly sometimes there's too much communication happening, but if there's not enough communication, right, there's assumptions being made, and you're filling in those blanks about what you might think that person believes. And that's going to be a main cause of conflict. Another cause is a negative attitude, right? Just like, and I think we've all met people before who, you know, you're in one place, and they're in a completely different place, and their place is like a forest, right? It's like totally dark, and you just like, you can't get there. Misinformation. So this is when you don't have all the facts straight. Insufficient information is when you don't have all the facts. You just don't know everything that you need to know about a problem. And then obviously differing perspectives. Sometimes people just have different opinions. And that's not necessarily bad. Having 2 different opinions is not necessarily bad. Having 5 different opinions isn't necessarily bad. Conflict in and of itself, by the way, isn't bad. Conflict can be very good and very productive. This presentation is not about how to avoid conflict. This presentation is about how to manage conflict, how to move forward and grow. So let's talk about how to de-escalate. So the first step in de-escalating, right? And de-escalating means, you know, just reducing those heavy emotions associated with the conflict. So the first step is don't take it personally. So often when somebody is being combative with you, it's not personal. It's not actually about you. It might be about what you represent to them. You may have said or done something that maybe triggered them, but it's not you, right? If somebody is struggling, it's usually them, not you. So as soon as you take yourself out of it, it makes it a lot easier for you to see clearly and more objectively. The next thing is to not make assumptions, kind of going in like this pathway. It's like a path. Pathway. Don't make assumptions. So it's really easy, just like it's easy to say, like, they don't like me. They're upset at me. Just as easy as to say that, it's also easy to say they're upset because of X, right? We don't know unless we have asked them, right? So really being clear, hey, actually, could you help me understand what happened here? I thought we were having a really good conversation, and it seems like you're upset now. Can you help me understand why you're upset? And then the next thing that you do is you listen, right? And we have all those listening skills, those great listening skills that we learned a few moments ago. And then you're going to take that information, you're going to reframe, right? You're going to say, okay, I originally thought it was X. Now I'm hearing it's Y, right? You're going to use your listening skills. You're going to use all those steps, right, of communication, going back, going in a circle with the other person until you've really been able to reframe what the actual problem is, what the actual conflict is. You're going to adapt your communication. You're going to change the way that you speak, and hopefully the other person will as well, right? So, okay, so like maybe you were the one who had the conflict and the other person figured out now, oh, now I think I understand why you're upset. So maybe you're that person. So you're going to change the way you communicate to meet the needs of the conversation. You're going to acknowledge each other's feelings. If somebody has changed, right, they've reframed, they've adapted, somebody's reframed, the other person's adapted, everybody's acknowledging feelings. This is all really good. So you're going to recognize that. Wow, thank you so much. I feel really heard now. That really made a difference when you said that, right? And so recognize those positive things in moving the conversation, everybody's efforts in moving the conversation forward. And you are going to set boundaries, right? So if people are having a negative attitude, if they are not conducive, like they're not open to these steps, you're going to say, you know what? I actually think we should stop talking about this for now. Let's revisit it when we're both a little calmer, right? Something like that. Like really set boundaries around what you are and are not willing to say, listen to, talk about, And that's okay. And it's okay to do that in a group setting too. So now we're going to watch another video. This one, I'm going to just, I think we should start at 30 seconds. So if not, I might fiddle with it a bit. So we're going to watch, and you're going to figure out there's 5 conflict styles. You're going to figure out, where do you feel like you live here? What conflict style are you? And by the way, no, there's pluses and minuses, pros and cons of all conflict styles. So wherever you are, don't actually feel bad about it. Also, don't feel great about it either, right? Like, oh, good, I'm the best at managing conflict. No, like that's not what we want, right? We want to be able to see the pros and cons in all the styles. So we're going to watch this. Give me a second to fiddle with it.
Hi. Do you style is to work out what our conflict style is. I like to remember the different conflict styles as animals. So let's have a look and see which style we can relate to. Here's the accommodating bear. This is cooperating to a high degree, sometimes at the expense of your own goals and objectives. The accommodating bear might say, I don't care that much, have it your way, or I give in. This conflict style can be effective when the other party is the expert or has a better solution, or if you really want to maintain a future relationship. However, if this happens too often, you may find yourself feeling resentful that you are unable to give your opinion or be heard. The avoiding turtle. This is when you simply avoid the issue. The avoiding turtle may say, I'd just rather not deal with this right now. Avoiding would be positive for dangerous situations. It allows you to step back and cool down. And not so positive if you don't give your opinion or speak up when it's something that really matters to you. Avoiding is not a good long-term strategy. You aren't helping the other party reach their goals, and you aren't assertively pursuing your own. Next, the collaborating owl. This is where you pair up with the other party to achieve both of your goals, breaking free of the win-lose idea and seeking the win-win. The collaborating owl may say, 2 heads are better than 1. This can mean reframing the challenge and creating a space for everybody's ideas. The downside is that it requires a high degree of trust, time and effort from everyone involved to ensure that everyone is happy enough. Here's the competing shark. This is the win-lose approach. The competing shark may say, I take charge, and act in a very assertive way to achieve your goals. This approach may be helpful when you need quick, decisive action, but can be unhelpful in other situations as sharks aren't too fussed about relationships. So being a shark too often may lead to losing friends. Lastly is the compromising fox. This is the lose-lose scenario where neither party really achieves what they want. The competing fox may say, let's meet halfway, or let's split the difference. This may be appropriate for scenarios where you need a temporary solution or where both sides have equally important goals. A negative is that it can be time-consuming if both parties do not want to give something up. So, which conflict style do you most relate to? Do you recognise yourself in any of them? What about your friends and family? What are their go-to conflict styles? It's really important to remember that no one style is necessarily better than the other. As we saw, there's pros and cons to each one. No one style is fixed either. So next time you're in a conflict, how about practicing different approaches to see if you can get a better outcome? Bye-bye.
She does such a good job, right? I just love that. So I think what's really important is like, I don't know if at any point you said to yourself when she first said like, oh, this is the, this is the next style. And you're like, oh yeah, like that's the best one. Right. So like, what I think is really important to notice is that they are all good styles to use in different situations. There's no necessarily one style that is the best one. Like you might have seen it and gone, that's the best one. But probably what your idea of the best one is not the same as what other people's idea of the best one is. And the important thing is to like, you don't always want to be a fox. You don't always want to be a shark, right? Like you want to tailor your style the way you handle conflict based on a few different things. One, how important something is to you, right? Everything can't be always equally important. There are going to be some times where a relationship with another person that you're having conflict with is more important to you than the thing you're arguing about, right? And then there's going to be times where that thing you're arguing about is a core value for you and you can't budge on it, right? And so you might use different styles based on what the most important thing is to you in that moment. And I think it's really, really important to do that empathetic listening during those times of conflict to understand what the other person's priorities are too. Is this something that they're willing to lose a friend over or damage a relationship over because that's a core value for them? I think it's really important for you to understand their motivation and not make assumptions about that either. So, in conclusion, establishing a safe space with clear rules is a foundation for productive groups. I think that's the same as last week. I don't think I changed it, but I did change the picture, right? Because this is all about what it means to be in a productive team. And communication, both as the speaker, right, the giver of the message, and the receiver, the listener, are two of the most important, that's the most important thing that we're doing in group work, is really understanding each other and being able to communicate our message. And when conflict does come up, using those skills is key to moving group work forward and maintaining a productive outlook. Okay, so that is it. I want to thank you. I am going to stop the recording. Thank you for listening.